All right, hey guys, Jason here. Lesson 2, sheet metal exam review 308A. So again, like I said before, if you failed once or twice or even several times, or even if you want to just brush up on after finishing school and you want to go in strong to write the exam, you've come to the right place. Now let's get started. All right, here we go. Lesson 2. I'm glad you came back and found me, and I'm glad you're going to show. Hopefully, you're showing patience in my editing, because this is new for me. Filming this, again, I told you before, I've been tutoring, helping guys for almost 10 years now, and again, I have amassed a ton of material to help guys with the C of Q, right? I know what not to bother reviewing, I know what to review, and normally when I'm helping guys one-on-one or a couple of guys, I can see where their strengths and their weaknesses are, and I can help guys that way. Unfortunately, this is not interactive whatsoever. Maybe somehow we can figure out getting comments back and forth and or emails, but let's just go forward with this and see how it helps you. Last lesson, we went over safety. Hopefully that was simple enough for you, and then memorizing it. We went over basic math just to get your head back into it again. So I said I was going to go over some fractions before. Oh yeah, we'll go over. I'm not going to bother. if you don't get the fractions, it's not that I don't want to waste everybody else's time, because hopefully it's more than 2 people watching this video on YouTube. But we need to go on because there's so much material to cover, and I don't want this. I don't want to have 40 lessons at an hour piece, because that last lesson ran about an hour and 10 minutes. So hopefully that's where we'll be running an hour, just over an hour every time. And so this one, we're going to start with math again. Again, is the test a lot of math? It depends on the test you get. You could have 20 to 30 questions on different types of math. Or you could have an easier test where, well, I don't think it's easy. The more math, I think it's better for me. But some guys don't think that way. Some tests you'll only get about 10 or 15 questions that concern math or have math in it. But we're going to go over it, and I'm going over it early in these lessons to get you started in math again, because sometimes to get those gears rolling inside your head takes a bit. So for a lot of people it does. And again, a lot of guys learned all this math in school. They learned, like I just had a guy just finish school. He didn't want to go write because he was nervous, and he came to me, and sure enough, he only finished school a few months ago. And I tested him, gave him 10 questions on different types of math, basic stuff, like formulas for layout and CVA and stuff like that. Couldn't do one thing. So it makes you wonder how people are finishing off in school, if they're paying attention or if they're not reviewing properly. But let's go something nice and basic. Percentages. Hopefully you guys remember that symbol. Figuring out the percentage of something, which is as simple as how much percentage. What's the percentage of what they're taking off your paycheck? That's a good start. But we're gonna say the question could be possibly, okay, your duct has 4,500 CFM traveling through it. It has a leakage rate of 3%. Now, a lot of guys would just use their calculator, which again, you are going to use your calculator, but there is a percentage button. I don't know if mine has it. I can't see one, but basically for percentages, you're just moving the decimal place over 2 places, right? So you got 0.03 for 3%. So as a review, say you have 10%. You're going to move the decimal place over 2 spots, right? So it's going to be 0.1. Pretty straightforward. Just get this back into your brain. If it's 50%, 0.5. If it's 1%, it's 0.01. So, you know, it's pretty straightforward. But I see guys, I'm tutoring guys, just tutored a guy this morning, asked him this question, didn't have the foggiest idea how to figure it out. 3% leakage rate, 4,500 times 0.03. Pretty straightforward. I'm not even going to bother going through the math. As long as you can figure that out, that should be pretty straightforward. I don't want to spend too much time with that. Because again, we're going to be going, right now we're going to be going over math. We're not going to get into formulas. We're going to get into what I call meat and potatoes math. Straight up math. Adding, subtracting. But where you're doing more than one part of it. Like, okay, you're going to figure this thing out, and then you got to figure another thing out because there's so many parts involved. Like work hours for a company, or you're installing VAV boxes or diffusers, and you're charging so much an hour, and you got to do so many. What's it going to cost? It's like that. Estimating material, and people say, "Oh, well, why are we doing this?" Well, because you should know how to do this. You should know if you're a foreman or a manager or a supervisor, you have to know this. And to think that you don't is insane, right? Like oh wow, you know how to hang a piece of duct. Whoop-de-doo, right? And there's going to be a lot more here. And estimating amounts of material for fabricating. You're going to make something in the shop, or you're going to make a lot of stuff in the shop for a job site. You need to know how much you're going to need to make it, right? And not just, oh, we'll just order a bunch of sheets and hope for the best, right? Well, it doesn't work that way. All right, had a little bit of a hiccup there and writing my stuff down. 45 minutes to install 2 diffusers at $27.50 per hour. Try not to. So how long to install 13 diffusers, or how much? My apologies. So again, as I say, try to figure out how long it takes to install one, right? So if you just, I know the math in my head if you have to use a calculator. So 45 minutes to install 2. So how long to install 1? 22.5 minutes. And I could just write per one. I'm just going to write 22.5 minutes. So we have 13 of them. So we're going to multiply that by 13. Right? Which equals, hopefully you got your calculator out there, 22.5 times 13 equals 292.5. Now this is where I talk about proper units of measurement. We are in minutes. So you're going to write minutes down. So, or min, whatever, mins. So you've got 292.5 minutes. Well, how much to install it at $27.50 per hour? And again, this is where people don't write down units of measurement, and then they're wondering why they're confused and in the middle of a question, and they're just stonewalled. Because right now, if I multiplied that by $27.50, I would have a huge number. And the funny thing is, on the C of Q, that answer will be there in the answer column, because they just love that stuff. You'd be like, did it wrong, and oh, the answer's right there. Check it off. Yeah, no problem. Boom, nailed it. Wrong. So again, how many minutes are in 1 hour? 60 minutes. So you're taking 292 and dividing by 60. So let's see, divide by 60, 292.5 divided by 60. Oh, my calculator's being mean to me. Oh, here we go. Remember I talked about in the last lesson about your calculator being on the wrong. Yeah, and I just did something to my calculator. There it is. It's back to normal. You gotta always be careful with your calculator backstabbing you. Okay, 292.5. Good. Divided by 60 minutes. Okay, so we'll just take this over here. Equals 4.875 hours. Well, it's pretty straightforward. Now you're going to take that and multiply that by 27.50 an hour. So again, pretty straightforward question. Like, if this is that simple to you, do yourself a favor. Fast forward. Although we are going to continually start going through these types of questions to get it all going in your head again. But there's let's go for the answer to that. 27.50 an hour. So $134.06 to install that. Pretty straightforward, but a lot of guys get lost in all the calculations and units of measurement having to be switched back from either minutes to hours or inches to square inches or square feet to square inches, stuff like that. That's why you always have to be paying attention. So hopefully you got that. If not, rewind. I'm going to go on to another one like this. Right? So another question, which is the same thing. We're going to go 2 men. 2.6 hours to install one VAV box. Variable air volume. Now, how long for 6 men to install 15 units? So again, what I like to do is, what does it take one man to install one box? So if you take this and make it one guy, and of course everybody makes a mistake right off the hop here. They go, oh, 2 men, oh, one guy, 1.3 hours. Well, if that was the case, companies would be making millions on the job site. One man, it takes 5.2 hours to install one box, one VAV. So how many are you doing? You're multiplying that by 15 units and then dividing by 6 men. Now, one thing the way I was taught, and I like it, so I'm gonna push it on you guys, is division. Using that. You'll see a lot of people, they would have written it like that, divide by 6. I personally can't stand that. Only because that's the way I was taught, and it just bugs me. The best way, I'm not going to say it's the proper way, but the best way to write division is always do the line and right underneath it. And you will see as you start doing more and more math, it just makes sense. It's like, that's why a fraction is done like that too, because that's what that means. It's not just 1/8, it also means 1 divided by 8. Right? So it's just, please do yourself a favor and sometimes you have to write that because that's the way it's in the formula. But if you don't have to do it that way and you can do it that way, do yourself a favor. It'll just make things more clear and concise, and in the long run it'll help you. Okay, so 5.2 times 15 divided by 6 equals, couldn't tell you because I'm not going to even bother doing the math. If you can't, you do that on a calculator and check it yourself, because if you're already to that part, you should be getting it right. Let's do it anyways. 5.2 times 15 equals 78 hours divided by 6 men equals 13 hours. let's do another one. So again, this is getting all this stuff back into your head. Let's keep going. Here's an old question but it's a good one. We're going to say that company payroll is $180,000. You can tell how old I am because I just used a comma there. So 2 men. Oh, sorry. And I have to, it's a 5-day week. A 5-day week, right? Because some people ask me this question: oh, is it a 6-day week? Is it a 7-day week? And there's 40 men in this company. So 2 men take off 3 days. So now, oops, sorry guys, and I'm out of screen there. See, that's not bad. Oh, and guess what? My battery's dying. So we're gonna do a little quick transition here as I change out my battery. Okay, that's sorry about that little hiccup. Killing my batteries really fast on this thing. Okay, again, estimating 40 men, payroll of 180,000, 5-day week. So 2 men take 3 days off. What are they saving on payroll, right? So first of all, we need to figure out what 1 day for 1 man is. So the first thing is we'll start with 180,000. Oops. Let's divide it by, well, either A, we could divide it by 40 men, or a 5-day week. So let's divide it by 5, right? We divide it by 5. I'm gonna get rid of my paper out of my hand. 180,000, looks good. Divide by 5. Okay, so 1 day, the payroll is 36,000. Okay, so there's 40 men. So let's divide that, or let me write it here. Let's divide that by, 40 men. See if that's still on the screen. Looks good. Divide by 40 men. Okay, equals 900. So basically, 1 work day for 1 guy, $900. Wow. Really? That seems a little high. Wow. All right. Maybe we should make that a 7-day week. Okay, so 2 men. So obviously now you're gonna have $900 for 1 day. So times 2 men times 3 days, right? Times 2 equals, times 3 equals $5,400 that the company just saved on salary on the payroll. Probably got just as much work done anyways, because these guys were probably lazy fucks. Oh, sorry for the language. There might be some people that don't like that. Okay, pretty straightforward. Again, estimating. Straight meat and potatoes math. Nothing serious. Just, you gotta pay attention. Follow along. Always remember where you are in the middle of an equation. Write it out. Show your work. Fantastic practice. Okay, more estimating. Okay, so now we're gonna go into a surface area question. So again, I reviewed last lesson, linear, area, volume, right? So we're gonna talk about area. And how do you get area? Length times width. So It's a tricky question, and that's me. I'm a puzzle guy. I love puzzles. I love having to work things out and think about stuff. So you have a duct that is 16 by 12, yeah, pretty common sized duct, right? And it's 200 feet long, right? 200 feet of duct. You need to cover it with glue. You're like, why? Well, hey, you could be insulating this duct. So 1 can of glue. I'll put can. So, you know, a can of glue will cover 60 square feet. Again, I like to write that out so you see square feet. Keeps it in the head. So you're thinking about it. So again, you need to cover all that duct. Now, again, there's a way of looking at it. You can draw that duct like that. Because the problem is a lot of guys go like this. They'll go, oh, 16 times 12 times 200 feet, and when they're out in left field. Because again, you've got to take this side of the duct, that side of the duct, the underside, or the inside, whatever. Like you're covering all those sides of the duct. So what I like to, for guys to figure out surface area of that duct, I always say, how does the duct come to your shop or a shop? It comes in flat sheets. So guess what? Here is a flat sheet. So we'll pretend that's the duct flattened out. So again, how long is that duct? It's 200 feet long. And how wide is that piece of metal? Well, we just flatten the duct out. So we can just pretend there's your duct. 16, 12, 16, 12. Now you can kind of visualize how much material there is, or how the surface area of that material flattened out. So what's that? 32, 42, 52. Is that 56 inches? I'd like to think so. So, and now here's the problem. We have inches and we have feet. Apples and oranges. We cannot multiply those or divide those together. So I'm going to go the longer way, because either you could change this to feet or you could change this to inches. And I'm going to go to inches I should just use my thumb, just so you guys can practice something here. So there's, you got to multiply it by 12, and you're going to get 2,400 inches, right? So how do we get the area of that piece, this piece of metal? 2,400 times 56. Where did I put my calculator down? 2,400 times 56 equals 134. Here, I'll write it down anyways. 134,400 square inches. Now, square feet. That's why we write it down. We're in square inches, but that can of glue is estimated in square feet. So how do we change square inches back to square feet? There's 144 square inches in a square foot, so we're going to divide by 144. Straightforward. But again, you got to practice it, get it going in your head. 933. So this piece of flat metal here, or the duct flattened out, is 933.3. I'm just going to put 933, because I'm being lazy, square feet. Are we done? No, because we need to know how many cans of glue. Like, again, the boss is waiting at the supplier. How many cans of glue do I need for this? I don't know. Fuck, just get a bunch. Well, that's not how business works. We need to know how much so we can price the job and estimate the job properly. Oh, it may be 5 cans, and then the next thing you know, it's 800 cans, and you just lost your shirt on that job again. So 933 square feet divided by 60 square feet per can. Divide by 60. Oh, there we go. I'm just going to pop this right here. 15.5 cans. Now, of course, everybody asks me, Oh, it's 15.5, or even if it was 15.4. Would we round that down? No, you would not, because you're estimating how much you need to do the job or to get the job finished. So you're going to need 16 cans because 15 wouldn't cut it, and you're going to be short, or you know do it really thin like the boss says. Oh, make it work. All right, straightforward meat and potatoes math. You know, you got to go through a bunch of steps to get to that answer. And again, watch your units of measurement so you always know where you are. Show your work. There we go. And we're going to keep going with that. Here's another one. This one's a bit tougher, but I'm sure you've all done this. Have you ever wrapped duct with insulation? Well, before we get into estimating for the insulation, we need to talk about something first when it comes to wrapping duct with insulation. Let's go with a round piece of duct, right? Basic question. If this is 10-inch round pipe and you wrap it with 1-inch thick insulation, so 1 inch, you now have a 12-inch diameter. So if you had to estimate how that roll, you would now multiply that by pi, and that would tell you how much to go around that. And then if you did a 2-inch seam, you would add 2 inches. Straightforward, okay? So, but that will bring us to the next part where we're going to take, what am I going to take? I'll take, what size? I'll say I'm going to take a 20 by 12 duct. Now, again, we're going to go back to where I always say to people, draw it. Like I just drew that, just to visualize so you can, it makes it so much easier to understand. So I'm going to draw a duct. I'm going to write this on the inside, and you'll see why. There's your 20 by 12 duct. You're going to put 1 inch of insulation. It is no longer 20 by 12. It is now 22 by 14. So if you were to roll out your roll of insulation, we've all done it. I can't stand doing it. It's awful work, working with insulation. You roll it out and you wrap this piece of duct, and you use a 2-inch overlap. So how much material is needed? Okay, you have 22 on this side, 22 here, 14 here, 14 there. Okay, so basically add it all up, right? Pretty straightforward. 14, 14, 14, 14, and a 2-inch overlap, right? So 2, 4, 6, 10, 14, 1, like I said, 2, 4, 6, 74 inches to wrap it. Okay, so a possibility of a question being thrown at you. Say your roll has 200 feet on it. How many times can you wrap that duct? Well, again, units of measurement. How much to wrap that duct? 74 inches to wrap one piece. How much is on this roll? 200 feet. Again, apples and oranges. We're going to have to change that 2 inches. 2,400 inches on that roll. So 74 per cut. 74 inches. So let's bang that off. 2,400 inches divided by 74. So now you can wrap that 32.43 times, right? So if your roll was 4 feet wide, you just multiply it by 4 feet. That's how many fucking feet of duct you can wrap. So again, pretty straightforward stuff. No fancy formulas for this. Just meat and potatoes math. What do I call it? Okay, I'm going to pause for a quick second here because I can hear somebody banging on my door. Oh, all right. Hopefully I didn't erase that too quickly for you. What do I want to do? Okay. more estimating. So, do you know what a gusset is? Gusset. There, a little triangle like that. You're gonna make a gusset. You're gonna make it out of angle iron. So, piece, 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 welded together of angle iron. So, how big are we making this? Oh, so that's 36 inches. That's 24 inches. And, oh, I'm going to say that that's X, right? Although, if you were to get a question something like this, they're not going to go X. They're just going to draw that like that. And you got to pick up, oh, well, if I'm going to make this, I need that piece as well. So, right off the hop, it's a Pythagoras question. So, right away, AB, the hypotenuse, you know this one, right? So A squared plus B squared equals the square root of C, or square rooted. So 24 squared plus 36 squared. Again, I'm showing my work. I'm going to 24 squared plus 36 squared equals 1872 square rooted equals 43. So I just did that, equals 43.26. So I'm just going to put 43 inches. I'm being lazy. So how much is there? So you got 43 plus 36 plus 24. So to make that one, you need 103 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that we need to make 50 of those. We need to make 50 pieces. Now, if any of you guys know angle iron, when you get angle iron directly from most suppliers, well, pretty well all suppliers, they come in 20-foot lengths. So the question is going to be, you need to make 50 of these. And so again, your boss is at the supplier, or he's on the phone with the supplier. Okay, how many 20-foot lengths do we need? So we're going to put 20 lengths. Or sorry, not 20 lengths. Each length is 20 feet long. So 103 inches, got it on my calculator, multiply it by 50 pieces. Nice. So to make 50 pieces, I need 5,150 inches to make that many pieces. Okay? Now each length is 20 feet. And here we go again. Apples and oranges. Inches and feet. So I can switch one to the other. Just for shits and giggles, let's make that into inches. So 20 times 12, again, 240 inches. So that is 240 inches. Let's put it up here. 240, right? So 5150 divided by 240 equals, see if I still got screen left up here. Yeah, we got 21.45 pieces or lengths. So again, how many you gonna order? You're gonna be ordering 22 lengths of angle iron. So again, not complicated math. What complicates it is all the different functions you have to go through. Figuring out a little bit of Pythagoras, figuring out that extra length. How many pieces, how much you need to make 50 pieces, 20-foot lengths. Not complicated, but if you can't follow along, you're gonna get lost, and a lot of guys do. It's so easy to get lost on stuff like that. Let's continue with estimating. Oh, here we go. So again, with types of estimating, here we're gonna go with, you're gonna have a roof, right? And you're gonna cover that roof with sheets of whatever, like could be sheets of metal, corrugated metal, So we're gonna say that your roof is 60 feet by 21 feet. Your sheets, I'll just write sheet equals 3 feet by 21 feet. Oh, so right away, if you're thinking about that, the roof area is 60 by 21. A sheet is 3 feet by 21 feet. So again, there's your roof. It's 21 feet. So basically you're gonna go like this. There's one sheet. There's another sheet. There's another sheet. So this number and this number are basically null and void. There's no point to it. So again, you got a 3 foot wide sheet and a 60 foot long roof, 60 feet that way. And you're gonna do it with a 3-inch overlap. So if there's a 3-inch overlap, you don't get 3 feet anymore. 3 feet is 36 inches minus 3. So each piece is going to be 30, it'll cover 33 inches. So again, you've got 60 feet. You can't use inches and feet together. So we're going to change this to inches, which would be 720. So we'll move this over here. So the roof is 720 inches long. Each piece covers 33 inches. So 720 divided by 33 equals about 21.8. So you need 22 sheets to cover that roof. Again, basic estimating, not too difficult. Hopefully you got that. If you don't, rewind. Because again, I'm going to keep going through these reasonably fast, so we can get as much in as possible. Because I'm watching the timer on my video here and making sure. Like I think we just went over 2 questions, and that's like almost 8 minutes there. So, okay, here we go. Another estimating question, but we're gonna use a room. So you're gonna have a room is 60 feet by 80 feet by 12 feet high. So this is not an area question. This is a volume question, because 60 by 80 gives you the area of that room, big room obviously, and 12 feet high. So when you multiply all this together, you're going to get volume, right? So let's start by banging all that together. 60 times 80 times 12. Wow. So this room has 57,600 cubic feet, because we didn't just do 2, which area would have been the little 2 up there, but now that we've done 3, you got your 3, which is cubic. Now, just so you can visualize that, right? That's your room, cubic feet, right? So just to get your brain working on that for guys that are struggling. So 57,600. Now, for ventilation requirements, sometimes they have Ontario Building Code. They might ask for so many air changes per hour. In most ones that I've heard are very small, like 0.3 air changes per hour. But in places where you're doing a lot of work, where there's a lot of fumes and stuff being made up, and to keep guys protected, like say if this was a factory or a shop of some sort, like even with welding, having larger amounts of air being moved. And we'll just, for this question, we're going to use 7 air changes per hour. So basically, you want to change this air 7 times in 1 hour, right? So you're going to obviously just going to take this 57,600 times 7. Sorry. Oops. And of course I didn't hit the multiplying button. 57,600 times 7. So you've got 400,000, 403,000 change, right? Now that's a lot of number, but we need to get a fan, an exhaust fan. What kind of exhaust fan are we going to use to push this air out? Well, first of all, you're going to do 7 air changes per hour, and your exhaust fan, pretty well all exhaust fans, if not 99, 100% of all exhaust fans are rated in CFM. What is CFM? Cubic feet per minute. So again, what's the difference? Units of measurement, minutes, hours, 60 minutes to an hour. So we've got that times that, right? And I ended up with 400,000, but we need to change it to minutes to get our fan rating. So let's divide that by 60 minutes. 6,700. So that's a lot. That does seem like a lot to me. I'm just wondering if I did, oh no, because that is a big room. That is a very large room. So they're calling for 6,700. So if you do the math on that and divide that by 60 minutes, you end up with 6,720 CFM. That's a large fan. Well, hey, you got makeup air units that push 10,000 CFM, 12,000 CFM. It's not totally insane, but that's also a large area to exhaust as well, especially at 7 air changes per hour. But again, we just wanted to do the math and get your head into watching out for units of measurement and figuring that out if that type of question comes at you. Because a lot of guys right there, CFM, minutes, and hours. And that's where a lot of people get easily confused, where all you're doing is dividing by 60. Let's keep going through that. Again, at 6,700, that's a big fan. Sometimes that number makes me wonder if it makes my spider senses start tingling, like maybe I punched in a wrong number there. But basically, the general idea of the math was there. Okay, here's another, like an estimating question, but it's something, this is going to be a question that's popped up here and there. This type of question can pop up on a CFQ, and it's about making a curb. Now, when you say a curb, when you have an exhaust fan, right, on a roof. So I'm going to draw a little curb here. Yoink. Like that. And then you'll have your little pieces like that down there. I'm an awful artist. Right? There's your little cant strip. So that's your curb there. And then you're going to drop your duct down through that. Like some guys have never done a curb, like, you know what I mean? Like on a roof or a strip mall. And for an exhaust fan, you build your curb, drop a piece of duct down there, and then you put your fan and sit your fan right on there. Pretty straightforward. The question here is, you're going to make this curve, and I'm going to draw it a little bit bigger so it's easier to, because some people are really cheap. My father used to be that way when we do jobs. Instead of ordering that from the supplier, a curb, especially if it's a big curb, we're talking like $1,500, $2,000. If you make it yourself in the shop, you're talking $200, $300, $400 with labor, or you just go to the lumber yard and get yourself some 2x10s. So we're going to talk about this and use. You need a curb. So say your fan dimension is 24 by 24. So you're going to build a curb 23.5 by 23.5. And I'm going to draw this. I'm just going to draw this as a plan view. You know, elevation view, plan view. Plan view is looking down on top of it. So there's your curb. That way you can visualize this. So 23.5 23 and a half. So the thing is, you're gonna make this out of 2x10s, like by standing the basically standing a 2x10 up, and you're gonna make the curbs out of those 2x10s, right? But if you guys ever work with lumber, you know a 2x10, the 2 side is only 1.5 inches. So keep that in mind. So there's one of your 2x10s that you're looking down at, but oh, they want a double wall. I'm sorry, this is really not straight lines, not feeling it. So you've got two 2x10s stuck together there. So if we were to do the thickness of it, two 2x10s, 1.5 inches each, that's 3 inches. 3 inches. The same going the other way. So your possible answer question, what's the biggest size duct you could shove down there, right? So if I was to give you like A, B, C, and D, if I said 20 by 20, 18 by 18, 16 by 16, or 14 by 14. So I'm not going to tell you the answer right away. I'm going to give you 2 or 3 seconds to, maybe you've already clicked into this. Some guys click into this bang, bang really fast. Well, if you got 23.5 inches from there to there, and then you knock off 3 and knock off 3, well, what's the inside dimension of this to shove duct down there? Well, 23.5 minus 6 minus 6, 17.5. 17.5. So what size duct can you shove down there? Well, I know guys, some guys would be, if they made a mistake, they'd try to shove that 18 by 18 down there. It wouldn't look good. But your answer is 16 by 16 duct. Pretty straightforward. But if you were ever to get a question like that on the C of Q, A, they wouldn't draw a nice picture like that for you. They would just do that all in written out, which again comes to reading and comprehension. Can you read a question like that and absorb it and understand what they're talking about without a picture being drawn for you? And could you help by drawing a picture for yourself? Very important. Okay. Okay. Back to roofs again. Okay, again, something very simple. Plan view of a building. You're looking down at a building, right? We're going to say that that's 100 feet. We're going to say that that's 100 feet. We're going to say that that's 60 feet. And we're going to say that this is 50 feet. So when you're looking at that, and I'll be honest, the first time my teacher gave me this question, I was like, oh yeah, I'm all gung-ho. And all of a sudden I realized, fuck, there's 2 measurements missing. And the funny thing is, when I tutor guys, a lot of guys, this goes right over their head. They're like looking at that, they can't just say, oh, that's obvious, because they don't read architectural drawings. A lot of guys don't. A lot of guys don't read drawings, and I'll say that if you don't read drawings when you do your job, like if you're on site or you're a field worker, and you're working underneath people where they don't let you look at drawings, very, very unfortunate. I would be forcing myself to look at drawings. Don't be one of those people, oh, I don't look at drawings. Look at drawings, read drawings, learn as much as you can. So if you know that that's 100 feet from there to there, and there's 50 there, automatically it should be pretty straightforward. That's 50. And if this is 60 and that's 100, you know that's 40, right? So they're pretty straightforward. So you add all that up for the perimeter. Oh, add all that up, you have 400 feet. So what's a possible question you could have thrown at you? Oh, you need to seal all around this the perimeter of this building with caulking. 1 tube of caulking will do 13 feet. 13 feet per tube, right? Pretty straightforward. So you got 400 feet, you divide it by 13, and there's your answer. Straightforward. I shouldn't even have to go over that. But that happens. Okay, so you got that. Now the other thing is, somebody might throw this at you and ask you to give you the area of this roof. So some guys would go like this. They'd go like that, multiply 100 by 100 and minus this square, which is a way of doing it. Or they could split that into a box there and a box there and add it together. Or make this a box and that a box and add it together. All three will do. But let's do it this way. So basically take the whole box, 100 times 100, which is, I'm going to say off the top of my head is 10,000. And this part right here is 40 feet times 50 feet, 2,000. So minus 2 grand. This whole area is 8,000 square feet. Pretty straightforward, but I just want to go over that and remind people about just simple things like that, because it can be hard for some guys to get this going. So now I just want to get rid of this to clear up some space on the board here. So, and I'm also going to get rid of this. Just less stuff on the board. Let's get rid of this too. I just to keep things pretty straightforward. So we do remember one thing. It was 400 feet was the perimeter. So right now we're going to say, oh, there's a parapet wall all around this, right? And you have to put a cap flashing or a coping on it. Well, here's the shape of your coping. That's 9 inches. That's 3. And this little guy is a 1/2 inch. How much material is needed to put this flashing on, right? Because, okay, you've just priced the job. I need to make that flashing. How long is it going to take me? And first of all, how much material do I need to make it? So again, how does your material come to your shop? Flat. So to make this, if you're going to flatten that out, so let's draw a flat piece of metal. Let's just pretend that that's it right there. Not perfect drawing, but 9, 3 and 3. So that's what, 16? No, sorry, 15 and a half, 16 inches. All right? The perimeter all the way around this building was 400 feet. So does this question look familiar again? 400 feet. That's still in the picture. You can still see that. Hopefully that light shining there, you can still see it. So we're going to take that 400 feet times 12, make that inches. So that'll be 4,800 inches. So to get the area of this, I drop that and grab my calculator. 4,800 inches. Remember, that's inches. That's inches. 4,800 times 16 equals 76,000. But we don't want square inches. We want square feet. Well, you could order something in square feet, but we're not going to. I want to know how many square feet this material is. So 76,800 square inches divided by 144 equals 533 and a bit square feet. Now, of course, if you want to take this, expand this and go on a little bit further, well, what's a sheet of metal? Well, it depends on what you're getting. 4x8 sheets, 5x10 sheets. Let's say you're doing 5x10 sheets. A sheet that's 5 feet by 10 feet. That's 50 square feet. So you divide that by 50 and you're going to get 10 sheets. So, or 10.3, a little bit, right? So, where is it? Sorry. Divide that by 10. I'm just doing that off my head. Sorry. 5.3. My apologies. 5.3 sheets. If that was the size, so you get six sheets. But these are all pretty straightforward estimating questions, which can pop up on the C of Q at any time. Again, will you get a lot of them? No. You're just going to get maybe 3 or 4, but again, there are possible marks that you're going to lose if you're not able to answer these questions. Okay, another little simple estimating question. Boiler breaching or venting. What is the slope for it? It is 1/4 inch per foot. So, 1/4 inch per foot for a slope. So, imagine this is your boiler breaching and it's 60 feet and it's 1/4 inch per foot. How much is that going to drop? So, 60 feet, 1/4 inch per foot. So, if we want to do this in a decimal, we could do this 0.25. So, you got 60 feet times 0.25 equals 60 times 0.25 equals 15 inches, because again, inches. So that boiler breaching, if it's 60 feet long, from one end to the other, it's going to drop 15 inches. All right, that one was pretty easy. That was pretty straightforward. That didn't. There's something else you should remember: 1/4 inch per foot slope for boiler breaching. Okay, here's one. I always like these kind of questions because here's a question where I ask people pretty straightforward stuff, and the guys say to me, I wouldn't know where to start. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that there's your slab or your ground or floor, and there's your ceiling or slab, again, depending if you're working in concrete. 12 feet, 3 inches. Then you're going to have duct hanging here. I know it's kind of a big ugly hanger, but it's just so you get the idea. And this is 20 by 12 duct. So I'm going to tell you that the line from the top of that duct down to here is 9 foot 11 inch. So the question could be, what's the length of that hanger? The net length. And again, we're going to talk, I'm going to keep going over this. Net and gross. Gross is with allowance, and net is without allowances. So when I ask you for the length of that hanger, I don't care about the bends, because so many people bend stuff differently. Some guys 1 inch and 2, or 1 and 1, whatever. So we're going to do the net length of that hanger. So if that's 12, so again, what the first thing I tell guys, those lengths, change them to all inches. So 12 times 12 is 144, so that's 145 inches. 9 feet, 9 times 12, 108. I better double check, because 9 times 12, 108 plus 11. Okay, 119. Well, I didn't put inches in there, just as a reminder. Units of measurement. So, 145 minus 119 equals 26 inches. So it's 26 inches from there to there. 26, right? But we want to know the length from there. Well, it's a 12-inch duct. So 26 plus 12, 38 inches. Pretty straightforward, right? So from there to there, 38. Okay? Pretty straightforward, but a lot of guys have trouble with stuff like that, mainly because you got feet and inches together. Change it all to inches, and that's the best way to start, right? And keeps things simple. Okay, let's see what we're going with next. I know this eats up a lot of time, but again, there's a good reason for it that we're going over it. I know I got one more page of stuff here. Oh, I do. Wonderful. Okay, I only have 3 more estimating things to go over. Let's start with the easy one. So we're gonna say that you have a piece of metal, 13 inches by 13 inches, right? Pretty straightforward. You're gonna cut 6-inch round blanks out of it. How many do you got? Well, again, people see this question. Okay, Ran a little bit too long there. For some reason, my camera here only lets me record for so long at a time before it automatically stops. So I don't know where it stopped me in that. But again, the question being 13 by 13 cut piece, and you're going to do 6-inch round cutouts. So I think it's pretty straightforward. If it's 6 inches, basically you're going to get 4 cut out of that. It's like, it's not that difficult, but people have come to me about this question and they're like, it can't be that easy. Well, it is. They're just making you worry. All right, makes sense though. Let's move on. Okay, here's a good one. We're going to stay in the same area. I always enjoy this question. There's a metal piece you need to make. 8 inches, 8 inches, 16 inches. There's a word that you should get used to called nesting, right? So if you're going to make this piece, you're not just going to cut them all out like that. You're going to take another one and you're just going to flip the pattern the other way. And you're going to flip it that way. Now you've got 2 there, right? So that's 8 and 16. So you don't have any metal waste. So how long is that? That's 24 inches. Okay, fantastic. So you need to make 1,000 pieces, and you're using sheets that are 4 feet by 8 feet. How many sheets do you need? So let's talk about that. First of all, how many of these can you get out of one sheet? So let's see, where do I get the most space in here? I'm gonna go right here. So first of all, this is what I do. Pretend that's your sheet of metal. Kind of gives you, and we're gonna do that. So if that's 24 by 8, so basically, right? So 2, so I can get 4 pieces in that row out of my 4 feet there, which is actually 48 inches, right? And how long is it this way? See if I'm still in the picture there. 96 inches, right? So how wide was that? 8 inches. So how many times can I do this down that 90? Well, 96 inches divided by 8, I can tell you is 12. So 12 pieces, or 12 cuts that way, and this one's getting 4. So 4 times 12 out of one sheet, 48 pieces in one sheet. But we need to make 1,000, right? So basically, you're back here, you're going to take 1,000 and divide it by 48. All right, back to your calculator. 1,000 divided by 48 equals 20.8 sheets. Or if you're ordering it, it's 21 sheets. Okay, and we're gonna do one more here. And this one is complicated. This one you might have to go over a couple times. And if you don't get it, try it. It's something, some guys get that right off the hop, some guys don't. But if not, then you go over it, and you go over it again, right? Not just looking at it, actually do it. Draw the piece. Oh, there goes my phone. Let me pause for 1 second. Okay, sorry about the interruption. Oh, somebody phoned me. And what were they phoning me? For tutoring help, because they forgot how to change fractions, change decimals to a fraction, multiply by 16. Okay, so one more question here. We're gonna, again, sometimes you have to watch how they word stuff. This is a possible question that could come up where they ask you with those sheets covering, instead of covering the roof, you're gonna cover a wall. So they're gonna say you have a square room with walls that are 21 feet 3 inches. So one wall is 21 feet 3 inches. So there's 4 walls in a square room. So remember that. So basically, you just take that and multiply it for the length all the way around the room. So you're going to have sheets that are 3 feet by 8 feet. And the walls of the room are 8 feet high. So 8 feet. So that again, doesn't matter. Now you're going to overlap these again, and it's going to have a 3-inch overlap. So instead of 3 feet, it's going to cover 33 inches. So here we go. Here, 21 feet, 3 inches. So first of all, 21 looks good on the calculator. 21 times 12 equals 252 plus 3 equals 255 times 4 walls equals 1,020 inches divided by 33 inches equals 30.9 sheets. So of course you're gonna have to order 31 sheets. All right. Hopefully that didn't drive you insane and you want to beat your head on the corner of a table because it's math. But again, it just helps you go over all this math and again, get a firm grasp of this material so that you're not struggling with it. And again, it goes back to when you guys do write the C of Q, you're like, I've heard of guys wasting 10, 15 minutes on a math question. They're just struggling so bad, which of course I would say, well, why don't you just skip it? Because you cannot waste that much time. You have 120 questions to this test, and on average, you have about 2 minutes per question. So hopefully if you get lucky, it's gonna be a question where you memorize something, and it's like, oh, yeah, just tick that off and it takes 10 seconds to mark it. That saves you extra time for other questions like math and or order of operations questions, as in, oh, if you're going to make a piece of duct, what do you do? Measure, cut, form lock, break, cross break. Like, we'll go over that because again, people make duct different ways, but there's a proper order of operations for it. And there's so many of installing a fire damper into a sleeve, put on one retaining angle, put it into a wall, put other retaining angle on it, and or install an access door to inspect that said fire damper. And I'm going to pause the film right now because I need to sit and take a break and have a drink, maybe a beer later. Okay, all right. Hope you enjoyed that math. Now we're going to start gently getting you back into pattern development, layout, because this is probably the hardest part people have with the C of Q. Math is very tough, but math can be, if you get lucky, there won't be that many questions on math, whereas sometimes you do get a lot of math, but you will definitely, when it comes to pattern, you will definitely get 38 to 42 questions. So like approximately 1/3 of your test will be on pattern, which makes sense. Hey, we're doing sheet metal. We're going to be making fittings and stuff. You better know how to lay out a transition or lay out a side 90 or a stack 90, let alone a squared around it or something more complicated than that. Not that you'll have to do that on the test, but they will ask you lots of little questions. Somebody just got off the phone with me that just wrote something that I didn't go over in, it's more of a miscellaneous question, like not really safety, but something as simple as, when you have sheet metal scrap left over, what do you do with it? Do you throw it in the garbage? Do you recycle it? Do you put it in hazardous waste? Well, then there's one other one that's even sillier, but realistically, hey, we all throw it in the garbage, but there's no reason it couldn't go into the recycling bin. And realistically, it can and it should go into the recycling bin. Hazardous waste, no. It's because it's sheet metal, right? It's not. Okay, so let's get back into looking at pattern. So we're not even going to start laying stuff out. What we're going to start talking about are the basics. Like, hey, drafting equipment. Like, I don't know how long it's been for some of you guys since you've been in school, but do you remember what your drafting equipment? T-square, ruler, your dividers, your main things, right? Because a ruler that you can measure with, your T-square, your 30-60 triangle, your 45, but because that's the kind of thing they'll say. You could get a question. You're going to do an OG offset. What do you need? Well, you definitely need dividers, and they're probably going to call them dividers because usually we lay out on sheet metal, but again, we also call it a compass, right? So to do your lines like that, right? That's for an OG offset or a side elevation of a three-piece 90, you need a compass or dividers. So again, you also got to watch out what names they use to get away to get these questions. Another simple pattern question: if you scribed a line and couldn't see it, so like you're on your metal, you scribe it with your scratch awl, and you couldn't see it. Well, basically, you just rescribe it. You keep rescribing until you see it, because again, they'll throw in tricky answers like, oh, resharpen the pivot point. Useless. It's things like that. But basically, just rescribe it, right? Gross and net. So gross and net, like your paycheck, with or without your taxes taken off. Same thing with pattern. Gross and net is with or without allowances. So the one thing with the CFQ, they're kind of nice about it, is it's always net. They don't, very rarely, not that I've ever heard or seen, that they will ask for your allowance. So if they're asking for a cut size, so just kind of a rough drawing. So if they're asking for a cheek, and again, know your parts, right? That's a cheek or your pattern side, right? If they're asking for this and for the cut size, you'd be cutting that out. A lot of people will be thinking, oh, well, it's 3/16 here, and you know, whatever. Don't worry about that. They're not likely going to ask for it. Not that I've ever seen. So basically, you want net, right? So if we were to do that, actually, try to do it. I'm going to do it a little bit neater. Let's just do it like that. So it's kind of reasonably neat. So there's your square piece of metal. So when they ask for a cut size, and again, this is pattern. When they ask for a cut size, that's what they're talking about. A piece of square metal or rectangular piece of metal. Nothing round, nothing, unless it's a round blank for a damper or something like that. But that is what they're talking about, a cut size, with a measurement and a measurement. Nothing outrageous, very simple. So again, if this was for a cheek, you'd be putting your for your throat in there, and basically that's it. And or say if they were going to ask for a flange on it, and then say a 1/2 inch for a flange. Pretty straightforward. Don't worry about your allowances. You should know your allowances anyways. Like, you don't want to get caught off guard. Like, your allowances are pretty basic numbers, so you should always know that anyway. So there's your circle, there's your center, that's your radius. Okay, so little simple things like when we do that, so it's not very not a very good circle, but using that, which is your radius, and then stepping off over here and re-scribing it, and then going there, scribing it there, there, scribing. I don't actually, well, the proper way of doing that would be with your dividers. So I take that and then off of there. So then that would be like that. And that would be like that. So then I'm taking this and breaking that circle up properly. It's probably been years since you did that in school. So now I've used the radius of that circle to evenly break up that circle for doing stretch outs and stuff. Are we going to get into doing a lot of that? No, because we just need to know how it's done and what it's called, just in case a question comes. Because again, this is a CFQ. We're not going to be laying fittings out. It's just, they're going to say, oh, if you're laying out this one fitting, how are you going to do this one part of it? So again, you got to be able to, regurgitate it and say, oh, this is what you're going to do, right? So again, we're not going to be going through mountains and mountains of schoolwork on pattern here. It's just to refresh you on simple little things like that, like seams, like what type of seams you would use. Okay, so a possible question: if you were to make any kind of, like, say, a cone, what kind of what's the best seam you'd use? Most likely you would use a groove seam. And again, do you guys remember what a groove seam is? We talked about this at the very beginning when we were going over fractions. 3 times the width is a groove seam. But what's it look like? So if you're actually doing the form, you would do a little piece like that and a little piece like that, and then you would use your tool to smash that and into it and pound it on your bench, on your blowhorn. Sorry, because even I haven't used a blowhorn in years. Little stake, pound it in, done. But little things like that. So if you're gonna make a squared around, what would you use? You would use that same seam. If you were gonna make a I'm gonna try to draw it out there. So there's the side elevation of a square round. Looks terrible, sorry. But that would be your round collar right there. So that's round. So what seam would you use to attach that collar to the body? There you would use the elbow edge. All right? And again, what's your allowance for that? Well, whatever, it'd be 3 times the width, and your width is 1/8, right? So you'd have a male and a female. So the male would be 1/8, the female would be a quarter, or 2/8, really. And then this is your square side. So you'd have 2 seams. You'd have an elbow edge, and you'd have a groove seam to make this fitting. All right, I'm gonna write that out so you can see it. Groove seam, just in case you can't understand what I'm saying. And just little simple things like this. And again, these are possible questions that are gonna come up, right? Oh, I just wanted to, for some of you older guys, I don't know if anybody remembers seeing this. See if that comes in clear. Yeah, the Sheet Metal Workers Pocket Manual. Somebody gave this to me several years ago. Maybe not several years ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And I looked through this, and it's like, wow. Everything that they talk about and what they show in this manual is on the CFQ. And it's always on the CFQ. And we're going to talk about a lot of little things in there. And again, with pattern, like they talk about certain patterns, like making a squared around, or a cone flashing, or just a cone, and they show what the pattern would look like, and you got to be able to pick it out. And realistically, you should, like, again, if you're a sheet metal worker, you should know how to make these patterns, and especially maybe not the intricate ones. Okay, like that's a little tougher, especially if you haven't been in school for a few years, and especially if you don't work a bench. If you're a field worker, like, how would you know? But you should still know the basics anyways. Let's talk about throw. Let's talk about, again, little simple things, being centerline radius. Like just getting into the radius. So I'm just going to draw an elbow here. And it's not going to look the greatest, but right. So right there, center line radius. Right there, that's your throat radius. And again, we all just call it a throat, but the proper term is the throat radius. And then from here to here is the heel radius. And again, it's important that you're able to name these things, because when they ask you for a certain question, and they give you something and they name it, you got to be able to go to that column where all the information is and go, oh, heel radius, throat radius, center line radius. So going right back to basics, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time with this, is we do two types of fittings in our field. One is HVAC, and the other fittings are for dust collectors. Now, the most important thing with the difference between these two, and again, dust collectors could also be called blowpipe. And again, fancy words. Dust collectors, blowpipe, material handling. And of course HVAC, because again, HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So they could be talking about anything like that, and it's basically an HVAC elbow. So what is the main difference? Is the center line radius of these. And so basically HVAC is 1.5 times the width. And when I say width, I mean the width of duct. And same here, this one's 2.5 times the width of duct. Meaning, and again, this is going back to the basics. We're not going to hang around in this, but again, what is the centerline radius of a dust collector or a blowpipe? That is a common question on the C of Q. And if you can't remember that, there's free money. As I say, guys, that's free money you're throwing down the toilet. Because it's such a simple thing that you should know anyways. So, if this duct is, we're going to say 20 inches, right? So, a full throat, let me write that down too. We're gonna get back to this. Basics. Full throat. So, if I tell you, if they're doing a layout for a fitting and they don't give you the throat radius, you have to assume that the throat is a full throat, because they haven't said otherwise. They haven't said, oh, you're doing a 20-inch wide elbow, it's got an 8-inch throat radius. Well, if they don't say it, then you have to assume it has a full throat, which, if it was an HVAC elbow, would be a 20-inch throat. And you're like, 20-inch throat? My boss would kill me, stab me, throw me off the job site, fire my ass if I made an elbow. Well, of course that nobody does. Maybe if it's a government job, how do we make up for throats not having full throats? It's called putting turning vanes into things, right? That's how we make up for it. Because again, if that was the amount of extra metal we'd use and the space that these elbows would take up would be insane. But this is the theoretical part of it that we need to stick with for the test. So, 1.5 times. Now they're talking about centerline radius. So if you were to take 20 and multiply that by 1.5, 1.5, you end up with 30. So where do they end up with 30? Well, they're talking about to there. From there to there is the center line. So if you take the width of duct, multiply it by 1.5, you end up with 30. So that's another spot where a lot of guys get confused all the time. They say, the centerline radius, throat radius, heel radius. You got to make sure where you are when you're laying this out, especially depending on what you're trying to lay out or what you're trying to figure out, which again, when we start moving along with this and getting to a little bit more advanced stuff. But again, you've already learned this in school. You should already know this. I'm just, getting it going again in your head. So this should all start hopefully looking familiar. And if it's not, then what's going to happen is we're going to, when I start going through the more difficult stuff, you're going to be hitting pause, rewind, and going back through it. And if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. No problem. So that was that little bit of basics, right? So again, you can always go back over this if you didn't get it. That's the idea. But we're going to stay with these basic pattern stuff. So what we're also going to talk about, which is basic, is pattern development. And being is, what type of pattern development do we use? So, and again, if you're not getting that, let me just start by writing the four down. So we got simple. Whoops, what am I writing here? Simple, parallel, radial, and of course, triangulation. Triangulation. So, again, possible question that pops up. If you were going to lay out a squared around, what would you use? Triangulation. If you're going to lay out a cone flashing, what would you use? Radial line. If you were to make it simple, like we were just doing a simple elbow, what would you use? Simple. Because it's also, simple is also called straight line. Right? And then of course there's parallel, which is just a little bit more difficult than simple and straight line. But ones like this, they don't usually ask about because it's pretty simple. So they ask about radial and triangulation. Are they going to ask you to lay out a squared around? No. Are they going to ask you to lay a cone flashing out? No. But guess what they might do? They might show you. Let's talk about radial for a second. What is radial line? So basically, where radial line starts at a point and radiates, like from there to there, from there to there, from there to there. So basically, if I was to take that line and draw it down like that, which I didn't do very well, and I smeared the line. And then of course I still haven't been able to find nice big dividers to use on this whiteboard. Nobody sells the damn things. So basically you would put that there and put your marker like that and swing that like that. And it's slid on there, sorry. But that's basically the idea of radial line. So what do we do? What do we make with radial line? Well, cone flashings. I'm just going to do it by hand. Something that looks like that. Side like that. There, just freehand. But what would that be? Well, there's your side view of it. They're going to possibly, another possible question is, they're going to give you a side view or elevation view. Because there's another thing. Basics. Plan view or top view or elevation view, which is also the side view. So there's your side view of a cone, right? That's what that cone would look like laid out, right? So I'm going to change that up a bit so it looked like nice and simple, but then they can throw a little curveball at you like this. There's another, like if that was a top view, I'd say, oh, is that a transition, right? Or a taper? No, that's a side view of a cone, right? So just so you can visualize what I'm talking about, I'm going to draw, this is the side view or elevation view, and I'm going to draw this from the top. So basically, I'm going to still follow this line up here, and I'm going to, because again, this is round and this is round. So if I just take this up a bit and follow that line, it's basically like that. You're looking down at it. So instead of the side, now you're looking at the plan or the top view. And again, side or elevation view, right? And so that would be that circle, because I try to line that up, right? And then there's this circle too at the bottom. So I could draw this right on top of each other, or which I think I should, just so you can visualize really what it's going to look like. So it's still the same size, but it's going to be bigger. So there's your cone, looking at it from the top. Let's see if I can. So again, here's that other cone, like a normal on-center cone. And this one would look like this. You'd have there's the top, and there's the bottom. So again, being able to visualize these things, right? Because again, you could easily get that question thrown at you. And of course, what would this look like? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this out, and I'm going to draw. First of all, remember I drew this one earlier? I'm going to draw it a little bit smaller, right? Not perfect, but that's the idea. Pretty symmetrical, right? Whereas this one will not be symmetrical, because when you look at it, you see this side is shorter than this side. So it's not going to be symmetrical. So I'm going to pick this side and say, okay, well, and especially if the seam, like the way I drew it before, if I pick the seam right here, so there's the two sides where they're going to connect. But remember, it's longer here, right? So as this goes that way, it's going to go down like that and then back up again, because that's that part sticking out there. Again, we're not going to spend hours and hours going over this, because this is stuff that you guys should already know, and we're just going to review it quickly. Because again, hey, we're not into math or anything where we're going to go over it and practice it. So now, here we go again with another side elevation. So again, side view or elevation. But what is this? Oh, well, this is going to be a round and this is going to be square. Oh, okay, so realistically, I can even make that, I'll say this is 12 by 6 and this is 10 inches round. Okay, so what's this look like from the top view? Okay, this is round. I'm just going to try to line it up so it looks the same. Not perfect. And it's on center, so I'm going to draw it from the top. And that's kind of what it would look like looking down on from the top or the plan view. Now, this is on center, and again, I'm just freehanding this. I don't have a T-square out because I'm trying to keep this moving along. So if I was to draw this line through it and call this on center, because I didn't draw it perfectly, but basically these are all theoretically they're all exactly the same. So if somebody asked you, how much of this would I need, how much of this plan view would I need to lay out this squared around? I only need a quarter of the view. I only need a quarter of the plan view to lay out that squared around. And again, little simple basic things that you probably haven't heard in years since, or weeks or months or years since you went to school. So again, and throw this in too. People just write VH, but vertical height. just in case that pops up and the question comes up and they ask, what's that called? It's called the vertical height. Alright. And again, these are very simple, basic things that I just wanted to touch on. And I'm going to draw you, because I drew you what certain patterns would look like when you laid them out. And we did the square. We were talking about the squared around. Not perfect, but again, you can see the round side here, and you can see the square side here. So what is this? This is half of a square to round, right? Half the pattern. Okay, so I just wanted to go over that because again, these are the kind of questions that pop up, and you don't want to be caught back and napping on it. So, and again, I think I mentioned this in one of my videos, either at the beginning of this one or in my last one, was guys that have been to school that should know basics, what a true length line is. And this drives me bananas. Like even guys that just came fresh out of school, what is a true length line? Or if I was to do this, again, it's just going to be a rough quick drawing. So there is a elevation view or side view of a square round. So that's round, and this is the square side. We don't need numbers, and I'm going to tell you that it's on center. And because that's another thing, is like most things, not all the time, but most things are on center, which makes it very easy to figure things out. But if I told you this was an on center squared around, how many true length lines are there? You've got possibility 1, 2, 3, or 4. Well, the answer is 3. Now you're saying, now again, if it's been that long since you've been in school, I'm going to explain it to you. And I'm going to go back to a little bit of basics to try to show you so you can kind of visualize the way I was taught when I was in school, right? So to begin with, when you look at that line, you see it from the elevation view or the side view, right? But realistically or theoretically, that is not a straight line. It's a circle, but it looks like a straight line. So we know that that's not a straight line. But these all are, right? So if we were looking at that, that's what it would look like from the top. So we know it's straight. But what about from here to here? Well, again, I'm going to draw this. Let's see if I got room to draw this in here, or I'll draw it over here. I'm going to draw the top view of this. Something like that. So basically, that line from there to there is basically from there to there. And that line, sorry, this line and that line is from there to there. Now, again, well, that's just a little short line and that's long. But when you look at this line from there to there, it's exactly as long as you see it with your eye. And same with this one at the bottom. This one you're looking at right here is that one. So when you're looking at that, you're actually seeing that. As opposed to this line, that looks like a straight line. Oh, it looks straight to me. But what you're actually looking at is this line here. So it's definitely not a true length line. And just to kind of help you understand this, I'm going to probably get an object out so you can look. So if I was to pick a line from there and go down the front of this, that's not a true length line. And say, well, why not? Because it looks like a straight line. Well, that line is traveling from there to there. Well, as this line comes down here, it's also moving forward, right? And as it moves forward, it's playing games with you, just like that round one did as well. As I'm going to pick something that I can make look flat. So if I was to pick that line right there, as you look at that line, if I was to flip it up like that, but if I was to turn this slightly like that, you're still looking at it in that direction and you still think you see a straight line. But if I turned it up, it's going on an angle. And that's the thing to this, right? Yeah, that's probably not the best thing I could have picked to show you, but it's the same as a paint can. All right, there's a nice little paint can. So as you're looking at that line, right now you see that line from there to there. But when you tip it, well, it's not. It's a round line, right? But those lines can also deceive you because that straight line down the side, if I tip the can, the line is now going away from you. And that's what they talk about with true length. And again, it's not that difficult. If you're having a hard time understanding that, that's going to be troublesome. But then it goes back to just when we talk about these certain little things. If I show you that fitting, and they ask you if it's an on-center squared round, well, it's got 3 true length lines to it. But then it's going to bring us to this. If you guys know what a pair of pants are. So there's a pair, the start of a pair of pants. Just gonna do that there. So there's a pair of pants, right? Y branch. So basically, again, it's on center, and you're gonna see that little thing, right? And then they're gonna break it up into a bunch of parts like that. Let's see if I did that right. Not perfect, I'm just scribbling it up really fast. Right? So, what if you look at that, they're going to say, what are the true length lines to that? And of course, because as you're looking down at those lines going down the side, and only those ones are the true lengths, because this is a bigger circle, whereas that's a smaller. So as these lines that are on part of the circle, as this line's coming down to meet this one, it's coming towards you. So, question, you look at that on center pair of pants or Y branch, how many true length lines are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if they were to name these, if they called this A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they did the same thing down here and marked all these lines, and down here you could call that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So whatever that line is named and whatever that line is named is going to be your true length lines. And that's it for true length lines, because again, with pattern, this stuff can go on for weeks and months. Because if you remember your college days learning this, how many hours every day in school did you learn this for basic, intermediate, and advanced? And how many probably upwards of 75 drawings that you guys did, almost 100 drawings you did over that time. And I'm gonna again pause there. Alright guys, I'm going to continue with basic pattern. And we're going to go back to simple thing like an elbow, right? And again, what are the parts? Throat, heel, cheek, and or pattern side. What is a possible question? We're gonna again, I'm not a teacher. I don't have, like, teachers have set curriculum, and they do it all the time. So basic, intermediate, advanced, they already have this set. They just open their book and they start beginning to end. They've done it so many times, it's already been set in cement, so to say, of where to start and where to end. I'm just trying to start with just basic things that I know that you need to know, which basically, why am I saying that? Well, it's a good chance that you're going to see it on the CFQ. And here's another example. A basic question where they're going to ask for that heel length, right? The length right there. So as we talked about it several minutes ago, that's your throat radius. From there to there is your centerline radius. And from there to there is your heel radius. So if they ask for your throat radius, okay, let's just say, we'll even just mark it. We'll call your throat radius, we'll call it 8. And we'll say that the duct is 20 inches wide. So the way that I was taught to do this, the formula for this is radius times 1.57 times degrees, or basically the angle. All of that divided by 90. Now there are different ways of doing this where they use pi, then they use 360, or divide by 360. This is the way I was taught, and this is the way I find it's the easiest, and not to mention it's the way I taught, so it's the way I'm teaching it. So if you were taught a different way, I'm sorry, but this is the way we'll be reviewing this. So the radius. So if I ask for the length of the throat, I'm going to put in the throat radius, what would be 8. What would be the heel radius? 28. So 28. And this being a 90. So right there, this is why a lot of guys, it'll be just radius times 1.57, because the 90 and the 90 below cancel each other out. So why do we do that? Well, because the curveball that they can throw you on the CFQ is, instead of this being a 90, they'll either say it's 60 degrees or 75 degrees. Or they could even say 45 degrees, but most likely 60 or 75. So then over here, we'll say 75, and then over 90. So that's how you get that length. And again, this is something you should be practicing. And it's not the practicing doing the math. The math is easy. That's simple. It's remembering that formula. Will that formula be on the CFQ? Not necessarily, because on the I can't remember if it's the front page or the back page, but there's a page somewhere in the CFQ when you write, and it has all the formulas that are necessary. Although they don't put simple formulas, and they might consider that a simple formula. But again, the way I was taught and the way I teach now is you should memorize this. You should have it memorized, right? Pretty straightforward. Radius times 1.57 times the degrees divided by 90, right? So, and I'm not gonna hang around with that very long because it's pretty straightforward. So let's go with another fitting, because simple transition. Now again, transition, there's not a lot to go with on this. It's pretty straightforward, but there's possible questions here that you could get. So let's pretend this is 20 by 12 going to 16 by 12. So a possible question you could see, or that you could be asked, is how many of these pieces would you have to lay out? First of all, how many pieces make up a fitting? Because again, I get guys that don't even realize if it's a fitting, It's 99% of the time, it's 4 pieces. The 2 sides, the top and the bottom. Because people will go, oh no, you could make that out of 2 pieces. You could put a bend there. It's like, no, it's not. It's made of 4 pieces. Top, bottom, side. Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Like, there's no weird way of making it. That's the fitting. So what they ask is, can any of these be traced? Well, yes, because the top and the bottom are the same. The 2 sides are different. So if as long as those are the same right there, because the top and the bottom isn't going down. So how many would you lay out? You lay out 3 pieces. Let's expand on this a little bit, because again, some guys don't write. Some guys don't measure and order fittings on site. Well, mainly because most of you guys might still be apprentices, or just you don't order, right? Which makes seeing questions like this really difficult for you. So I'm going to make this 20 by 12 going down to 16 by 10. Now, if you were looking at this drawing, you would have to have some information there. Now, of course, myself and some of you guys will see that, oh, obviously it's missing this. We'll go like this. I'll be a nice guy. I'll give you what it could look like on the CFQ. Let's go FOS, FOB, FOT, or on center. Now, to me, FOS, like flat on side, to me, there's really no such thing to me when I order fittings, right? These other 3, yes, it could be that. So, but we don't know, because what we need is a side view of this. So I'm going to take this fitting and draw it so that you're looking at it from that direction. Or you could actually be looking at it from this direction. So I'm going to go like this. Draw it like that. There. Now, I'm going to put these measurements back in there. This is going to be the large end. So this will be 12 by 20. And this end is the small end. It's going to be 10 by 16. Now, not most guys, but some guys are going to look at that and they're going to understand what I'm doing. I'm just going to tip this camera down because I just drew that. Yeah, there you go. Oops. That's better. Yeah. So, there's a top view of fitting. And again, if you guys, I was always taught when you draw a fitting, you draw it like you're looking down on it, like you put it on a table or on the floor and you're looking down on it. Plan view, right? Top view, plan view. Now, this is the side view. So right now, I've taken this fitting like that, and I'm now looking at it sideways. So what do you notice about this? It's flat on the top. So this piece right here is still flat, right there. So that's what you're missing. And if you don't understand that, well, let me redraw this. I'm going to redraw this fitting from the side. Now, what I don't have right here right now is a fitting, which I wish I had right now. I don't. So now I'll redraw that fitting. There. Same thing. That's not the same fitting, but now it's flat on bottom. Okay? Because again, that fitting's like that, and then I've taken it, flipped it sideways like that. Now, I can still draw this another way. I can get rid of that, and I can still redraw this one more way. It's still coming down like that, and it's also going up, which is on center. Now, I wouldn't write on center. If you guys know about drawing fittings, I wouldn't write on center there because that's the wrong place to draw it. You'd actually be writing on center from that direction. If I was to, like, if I made that fitting 3-dimensional, it would be on that is on center from that direction, because on center from here means it's not flat on one side over here or square on that side. So I hope that hopefully you can see that. Again, if you're a guy that orders fittings and measures, this is easy, very simple to you. If not, and you haven't had to do this in a long time, that is going to be tough. I will go over that once again, right? Because again, it's also being able to visualize. And again, at this moment, I don't have any fittings here, because I'm in the basement of my house. I have fittings sitting out in my garage, but I could pause. But although I am going to pause right now. Okay. No, I didn't go get any fittings out of my garage. All right. Again, basic pattern and trying to understand how to draw a fitting, or like not how to draw it, or even like when you see it, understanding what you're seeing. So again, I'm going to draw a fitting like that. Now, again, to a lot of guys, that's going to look like a transition. It still is a transition, but because there's nothing marked here, it's kind of you're left in the dark. So, okay, 24 by 18. So we know that's a square side. I'm going to tell you that it's flat on top. Okay. Now, this end here, I'm going to tell you that it's 10 inches round. So it's a squared around. So what I'm going to draw are 4 different drawings to see if you can understand this. Now, so to me, that's an elevation view, right? Because it is a squared around, it looks like, if this was a normal fitting, I would call it the top view. But let's just take a minute here, because what I'm going to draw is I'm going to draw this fitting from the top. And the idea is to see if you can figure out which drawing it is. And we're going to talk about it, what the possibilities are. Now, I'm not going to draw them to the same scale. They are going to be a bit smaller just so I can fit them around here. So I'm going to draw one like this. I'm going to draw one like this. I'm going to draw one like this. Oh yeah. And I'm going to draw one like so. So, for guys that are this is still fresh in their head from school, this is simple. But what I'm trying to show people is that fitting is lying down like that, and then for all these, I've tipped it up, right? So basically, let's just pretend that that's the round end like that, and then I've just tipped it up like that. So that's what you're seeing. So that you're seeing that round side is tipped up, and the square end is staying down at the bottom. So, which one of these is that fitting? Now, basic clue is, and again, we're going to go back to what I'm always talking about, clues. Like being Sherlock Holmes. It's flat on this side. So the circle, or the round end, is all the way over to this side, right? This one is to that side. This one is to that side. See how that kicks that way? Well, that's kicking that way. Those ones are kicking that way, kicking that way. So right away, as in most CFQ questions, 2 of them you can get off. Just you can get rid of them right away. Wrong, wrong. But now we've got 2 here. So which one is it? So again, it comes to visualizing, right? When you stand that up, you're standing it up like that. So it's flat on top. So basically, it's the side that you see right here is the side it's going to be flat to, which is that one. So when you stand it up, it's flat to there. The circle is to that side here, and once you stand it up, it's right there. That's why I wish if I had a fitting on here, it would make things a little simpler, right? Whereas if this was flat on bottom when you stood it up, that would be the one. But that one's flat on top because again, that's 10 inches, and this end is 18 inches, and that's the other thing that makes this is watching the numbers because again. And again, visualization is important. So I'm going to see if I can get you to see this in your own head. Is if I take this and I make this 24 by 10, these are all wrong now. And why is that? Because that 10-inch round is the same as this side. So that 10-inch round should basically be like this. Same with that. Should be basically like that. And hopefully you can see that and visualize what I'm talking about. Taking a two-dimensional drawing like that and changing it to into something visual inside your head, right? Because that's what the importance about the C of Q is. Everything's written, and it's all in words. And it's now taking it and trying to turn it into something you can either visualize and or see. Taking words and drawing a picture out of it even too, right? Okay. So even something as simple as, let's see. I'm actually gonna use my ruler for this one. So what I'm gonna do is we're going to call that 8 inches. We're going to do, right, and then we're going to call that 6 inches. So basically, what I've got here is that's 6, that's 8. So basically, and I'm going to do 2 inches of straight here, and then we're going to do that. So you can kind of see that because I'm doing it without dividers or a compass. So that is basically a change cheek fitting, and it's pretty well the same as before, where it's going to be to figure out the heel. It's going to be radius times 1.57. But there's a bit of a problem here, and I remember because this is from basic, and when somebody asked me about this question, I couldn't remember. I actually had to go ask an apprentice because it had been so long since I laid this fitting out, and it's so simple. So basically, you can see 2 inches of straight right there. So basically what you're doing is with your set of dividers, and again, this set of dividers I have is so small, I don't know if I can get it on there, and I can't. So basically, normally you'd be putting your dividers on there and doing your radius. But with this, you're going to set it up and move it over 2 inches, and then you're going to do your radius. And that's how you do your change cheek. And again, I wish I had, we'll review this question again. But mathematically, so whatever your throat is, because your throat's still going to be the same. We'll say it's a 6-inch throat. So really it's a full throat for that, although it's not the scale. So if that was 6, so you'd set your dividers up at 12 inches, but you'd move it in 2 inches. Then you'd swing your radius. And that's how you do the 8 to 6 change in practicality. But how do you do it mathematically? Well, you take your radius, which is 6 and 6, because that's your heel radius, so you get 12. But then you also have to add that 2 inches there as well. right? So, and again, if you get a question like this, they're gonna have to give you the radius, for sure. Like, and what if they don't give you the radius? As I said before, it's an HVAC elbow, so it'll be a full throat. Okay, so then which throat would you use? The problem is which one would you use? Well, I guess you'd have to use the 8. You know, I can tell you this, if it was on the CFQ, they're going to give you the throat side. They'll give you a radius so that you don't have to try to figure it out, because that is a tricky question. But a little simple thing like that's sometimes hard to remember. Okay, guys. Again, that getting back into the pattern, it's a tough go. Even for me, trying to figure out how simple to start, how easy to, like, how basic do I go back into pattern development. The one thing I can say to you is whatever I'm teaching you, you're gonna need. What are we doing? The CFQ review. So if you're writing this down, like, don't think, like, my point being is if you take other refresher courses, or, like, you know, teachers might say, oh, go look over your notes. Again, basic, intermediate, and advanced notes, my school notes are about 3 binders that thick. Do you think all of that's going to be on the CFQ? It definitely is not. So again, if you see I'm going over it, there's a reason for it. Study it and practice it. What I'm also going to start doing is, when it comes to basic math, like I said with the fractions from last lesson, you guys should be able to practice that on your own. Like, go find it on the internet. And, I don't want to waste people's time here with lessons that when only a couple of people need help with fractions and the rest it's just easy, right? So, but when it comes to other stuff, when we start getting into the more difficult math or difficult pattern, I will say this: practice, practice, practice. So I am going to start doing a still picture shot that I'm going to insert that will be like a practice homework sheet that you guys should practice, and then you keep going over it. It's going to stick in there for a while and hopefully not leak out too fast. Okay, so I do believe, depending on the time, this could be the end of lesson 2, depending on how much time I shoved in here.